Well, I hope you're having a great day. We're going to spend some time this afternoon or this morning or this evening, depending on when you're watching this, talking about the technical information surrounding the Hartford Move United Nationals, specifically for track and field. We'll divide this presentation up into three sections: general information, field, and track. There are three people that are going to be running this event. Denise Hutchins will be the meet manager. Paul Johnson will be the referee for track, and I will be the referee. Phil Galley from Adaptive Track and Field will be the referee for field. We're going to be following World Para Athletic rules with adaptive track and field exceptions. The pre-event field practice, some of the practice implements will be available for you to use. I can't guarantee if they're all going to be available, but some of them will be available after we put the implements into the buckets, and they will be open for you to check out. Track and field reporting times. If you are going to report to a track event 20 minutes before the event, you should go to the call room. Seated events 30 minutes and ambulatory field 30 minutes. Track probably has some exceptions. If you've been to nationals before, you know that we use our public address system to call those events. So listen and understand which event and what heats in that event are being called. I don't want you to go to those events too early and be out in the sun for too long. Equipment, field chairs, racing chairs, um, frame runners can be stored at Spring Park High School beginning on Sunday, July 9th. Equipment may be checked in and out of storage during the times on the event schedule. Anything stored on site is stored at your own risk, obviously. All personal equipment should be clearly labeled with your name on it. Athletes and coaches, you're responsible to make sure that those implements, those chairs get to the field pits on the days your athletes are um, competing. Personal implements checked in will be in the pit bucket for the athlete to use. Remember that when you check in an implement, it's available to everyone in the pit. Athletes may not take their implements from the pit after the event. They must go back to weights and measures and get it there. The reason for that is that we claim national records after the event is over, and we bring all the implements back and reweigh them. So if an implement is taken from the pit by your athlete and that happens to be an implement that's generated a national record, that a record would not be recorded. So athletes are registered for events. No additional athlete events can be added after registration. When you get to check in on the day you check in, you can drop events. However, after that period, you will not be allowed to drop any events. So please, if you plan on dropping an event, drop it at the time you come in to check in for the nationals. The only way that you can drop an event after that period of time is for some unforeseen happening, such as a traffic jam or other casualties, or someone has a medical issue. If for some reason an athlete who doesn't have an excuse does not show up for an event that they are registered for, they will not be allowed to run in any of the further track events or field events or relays. So this is very serious. This is a level 3 meet, and we need everyone to be there that signed up. Race bibs, ambulatory track and field, 2 bibs are worn on the front and the back of the uniform. Ambulatory jumps, 1 bib, and your athlete can choose whether they wear it on the front or the back. Frame runners, they'll have 2 bibs, one on the front of the frame and the other on the back of the uniform. Wheelchairs, 2 bibs, one on the back of the chair, one on the left-hand side of the frame so that the camera can see your bib number as you go past the finish line. And seated throws, one bib, and that bib should be on the front of the uniform of the athlete. At a very high level WPA meet in field, a bib number would be on your chair. However, with us sharing chairs as often as we do, we're only requiring you to wear the bib on the athlete. Attire, spikes and running shoes, no more than 11 spikes in a shoe. Those spikes should be pyramid only, not needle or Christmas tree. The spikes cannot exceed a quarter of an inch or 6 millimeters. Any number of spikes up to 11 is acceptable. Long jump and triple jump spikes must not exceed 9 millimeters, and high jump and javelins they should not exceed 12 millimeters. Guides should have guide vests on. Those should be bright colored. And if you don't have them, you could pick them up at Lowe's or Home Depot. They'll be suitable for the event. If a guide is with a athlete, that guide must abide by the same rules as the athlete. So the same rules apply with respect to spikes to the athlete and the guide. Shirts, I shouldn't have to say this, but when you're in the venue, you must be wearing a shirt. Cannot take that shirt off for any reason. Weather. If conditions force us to stop competition because of weather, we'll follow the Move United protocols that will be clearly published by the time you get to the event. Frame runners. Typically, we have always, for the past few years, frame runners have been T31s and T32 athletes. World Para Athletics has now introduced a T71 and a T72 class for these athletes. For this year, we're using the T31 and T32 classification because World Para Athletics came out with their new classes late this year. However, we will adopt this T71 and T72 next year, and athletes who are being classed this year will be given T71 or T72 classifications. So just a correlation between the International CP organization, which is now part of IWAS, and WPA, a T31 or a T71 is equivalent to an RR1. A T32 or T72 is equivalent to an RR2 or an RR3. Any athlete coming to this competition can choose to compete as an open. They have to be 14 years of age as of December 31st. However, you must understand that if you choose to do this, it will apply to both track and to field. Pits. We're going to be running up to 2 ambulatory shot put, javelin, discus, and long jump pits at the same time, and we'll be running up to 8 seated pits at the same time. Please understand your athletes' pit assignments. We will clearly send out communications with your athlete's name and what implement they will and what pit they will start at, and the rotation as they go through the rotation to the next implement. Have the proper number of coaches and parents so that your athletes are covered no matter where they are in field, as to not slow down the competition. We cannot delay the competition because a coach is missing. Personal field implements and seated field chairs, check-in, weights and measures will be located at Spring Park High School, near the ambulatory field area. The meet will supply all the implements needed for field, so your athletes will not necessarily have to bring their own. Please understand that if your athlete has a implement which is not totally special to that implement to that athlete, you should be able to use the implements that are in the pit already. Um, Most of the time when an athlete checks in an implement, it's equal to or lesser in value than the one that we're already putting in the pit. You can come to the weights and measures and ask what implements are going to be in your particular pit for coming up for field, and then you can make a final decision whether you want to check that implement in. Once implements are checked in, however, you cannot check them out. So do all your practice before you check them in. Finally, post competition, your implements will be picked up in the weights and measure room. They cannot be taken from the pit. We do that because we have records that are being kept, and the way we do records is that we measure those implements after they come back from competition. So let's look at the schedule. The schedule for U11 and U14 athletes are on Tuesday. That includes all ambulatory, all seated, all throws, and all jumps from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. U17 and U20 juniors all Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. All open adults that are doing discus and javelin and long jump are on Thursday morning from 8 a.m. to 12:30, and all open athletes that are doing javelin, shot put, and high jump on Friday from 8 a.m. to 12:30. Event timing. So once we start a session, then that we're going to be moving to a rolling schedule. So once you check in and we run through the first implement, we'll then move to the second implement. And if all the athletes are there, we will start early if, in fact, everyone is there. If you are not in the first rotation, as an example, and are going to come in the second rotation, then please be at be at your pit at 30 minutes prior, so that if we're early, you'll be able to join your group and compete from that point forward. Refer to the pit sheets and the field schedule to know what session and events and what pitch you're going to be working from. Long jump and high jump. The athletes will set his or her marks without assistance from a coach unless the athlete has an approved assistance form or the class allows for a automatic aid to be involved. We will put a metric tape down on the runway at all the long jump runways. So when you're practicing with your athlete, have them practice with a metric number in mind so that they can look at the tape and set their marks without the need for assistance. Seated field, please check at the pit. Your chairs will be checked at the pit. If not checked there, they'll be checked at the storage area. Coaches will be allowed to help set the chair in the ring and help strap your athletes down for all classes. From the time that chair is locked down, we will start a timing. We will start the timing for either 4 minutes or 5 minutes. From that point forward, your athlete must get strapped in and do as many warm-ups as they can before the time is up. Athletes who are F55 through F57 that are U17 or older are required by WPA to be able to get in the chair and strap themselves in by themselves. This is difficult when we're sharing chairs, so we at Adaptive Track and Field USA have a USA rule that says that we will allow a coach or a parent to help strap the athlete in. However, when you're practicing, please work so that the athlete can do that strapping themselves. So in case they get to a higher level meet, they won't be disqualified. Coaching boxes. We will identify coaching boxes clearly. They will be close enough to your athletes so the ambulatory athletes can walk over to you. And for seated athletes, they will be close enough so that you can communicate with your athlete while they're in the ring. We will not allow the coaches into the ring between the third and the fourth row, you'll communicate to that athlete via from your coaching box, unless there's some specific issue that we need to rectify during that 1 minute time period. Attempts, we will have 6 attempts for all athletes, for all implements, if everything goes well. Remember last year we went to 4 because our numbers were so great that we could only get the sessions in with 4 throws per implement. But with the additional hits that we have identified and designed, we should be able to go to 6. I can't say that definitely, but I am 95, 98% sure that that's the way we're going. Weather. If the weather is going to affect the timing of the sessions, we will immediately go to 4 throws. So if we get a thunderstorm or some other issue, we will move to 4 throws. So what was done before at 6 throws will be cast, and what is coming forward from that point will be 4 implements, 4 throws. Shared chairs, where possibly we will ask the athletes when we come into a ring, to a session, who is going to share chairs. We will reorder that session to allow those athletes to all use the same chair without taking it in and out. That saves us 2 to 4 minutes per athlete, and that gets us to finish 20 to 30 minutes earlier. So it's real important to do that. If an athlete is sharing a chair and that chair is not available when that athlete is called, we'll move that athlete further into the rotation. However, if we get to the last athlete and the chair is not there, the athlete's going to have to make a choice whether they borrow a chair that is in the pit or decide not to throw that particular implement. Okay, so that's field. If you have any questions about field or track, please email me, philg1234@comcast.net. That's Phil, PHILG1234@comcast.net. We'll be able to answer any questions that you have for field or track. Okay, so track. First thing is prelims and finals. For the 100, the 200, and the 400, if we have prelims and finals, we will run prelims and finals for the 100, 200, and the 400s. It typically happens for the U17s and U20 T54 men and the U17 T54 women. The prelims will be run as the first events of a particular session, and then the final will be run as the final event in that particular event. So the first event in the 100 meters and the last event in the 100 meters. We will follow, however, WPA guidelines and World Athletic guidelines to make sure that the time between the prelim and the final is a legitimate amount of time. Athletes that qualify for the final will be notified by the posted results that will go in the area. Remember that if you have made a final and then you don't show up for the final, you will be disqualified from the rest of the track and field. So make sure that you know that you have made or not made the final and prepare appropriately. For the longer races, 800-meter and longer, if we have more than 8 athletes for a final, we will run time finals for those events rather than prelims and finals. If we in the wheelchair events, if we have 9 to 15 athletes, we'll run a waterfall start. 9 to 12 athletes will run a waterfall start, and for ambulatory 9 to 15, we will run a waterfall start. If we have more than 12 wheelchairs or more than 15 ambulatory, we will run multiple heats, and we will seed those heats by time. So your seed times will dictate which heat you'll be in. Okay, track. The schedule is the open adults 20 years and older will be on Wednesday morning from 8 to 12 for the 1500 meters, 100, and 400 events. For the On Wednesday p.m. at 5 to 8 p.m., it'll be the 200 to 60 weave and the 800 meters. On Thursday morning, the open adults and the juniors will both come in at 6:30. The adults will be doing the 3,000 and the 5,000. The juniors will be doing the 3,000, the 5,000, the 100, 4x100 relay, and universal relays. On Thursday p.m., the juniors will be running from 3:30 to 8 p.m. and they'll do the 60 weeks, and those other two events. On Friday morning, both the juniors and the adults will be there for the special 100 races. If you're not familiar, and we had some communication problems last year for those athletes who have not come to nationals before, we take the 8 fastest 100-meter athletes, no matter what class they're in, for both ambulatory and wheelchairs, and we run a special 100 to see who is the fastest on the straights. So we will run a 100 wheelchair and a 100 ambulatory for both women and men in the open, and we will run a junior wheelchair male and female and junior ambulatory male and female 100 meters for the juniors. The juniors will also run the 1500, the 100 special, the 800 medley, and relays on Friday. Okay, wheelchair racers must provide their own helmets. You all know this, but from the time that the athlete enters the venue until the time they leave, they have to wear their helmet. That doesn't mean that you come in without your helmet while you're prepping and then put it on before you go on the track. As soon as you get into that chair, you have to have your helmet on. Safety is our number one issue, and we feel that it's very important that every athlete wears their helmet. We will provide starting blocks for the ambulatory athletes. Uh, any ambulatory athlete can choose to use starting blocks. However, the T11, 12s, and 13s and T20s for U17 and older are mandatory, both for athletes and for guides. For the U11s and U14 athletes in that T11 through T13 and T20, it's optional. It's optional. However, best practice would be to coaches is to get them to use blocks as soon as possible so they are not at a disadvantage when they are in that U17 age group. For all other classes, starting blocks are optional. If an athlete requires help setting their starting blocks, we will have starting block assistance forms at the call room. They're also available on Adaptive Track and Field USA website under forms. If you want to take a look at it now, if you've never filled one out before, it basically says that I'm going to have the left foot forward or the left foot back, and then it will ask you what the numbers that you would like us to set those blocks up. I suggest that when you get to the track and you're using blocks, to look at the blocks that are being provided and set them up, and then write those numbers down so that you can, whenever you come into the call room, you can create a form so that we can set the blocks up properly. I can't guarantee it right now whether we're going to set those blocks or we're going to ask the coaches and the athletes' aides to set them up, but we will manage that as we come closer to the meet. Competition racing chairs and frame runner chairs will obviously be checked in the call room prior to the start of each event. T61 and T62 athletes will have MASH numbers. The U11 through U14 do not have MASH numbers, so we will not check MASH at the call room. For athletes 14 years old or older, we will check everyone's MASH at the time they enter the call room. For non-WPA licensed athletes in those age groups, if their height exceeds the MASH the athlete will be allowed to compete, but should have their mask checked by the classifiers. WPA athletes that have WPA license athletes who exceed their MASH will be allowed to run under protest, and then their results will be reported as Class T91, which is a non-classed athlete. T91 athletes are not eligible to score to set records. Compensator settings during the competition. Obviously, we'll start whenever we're going to start and end the warm-up session about 10 minutes before the start of competition. During the course of that particular session, uh, we will have the opportunity for those wheelchair athletes to go out on the track and set their compensators for the upcoming event. Ambulatory athletes will not be allowed on the track during that time frame. If the time frame is long enough, we will allow those ambulatory athletes to warm up on the infield. During regular warm-ups at the first start of the day or at first start of the afternoon session, safety is our number one concern. So please, please, please follow the signs and observe the warm-up protocols. Wheelchairs will be in lanes 1 through 4. Ambulatory will be in lanes 6 through 8. And coaches and athletes can use lane 5 to do whatever repairs or settings they need to do while they're on the track. The athletes should not ever stop on the track. It's dangerous and you might get hit from behind. If you have to stop, please move to the infield or move to lane 5. Also, when you're entering a track, always enter the track at a 45-degree angle so that you are going to your location and lane and not going straight across the track, and so that you might be broadsided by another athlete. Finally, you can only go in a counterclockwise direction on the track. No athlete should be moving in a clockwise direction on the track. If for some reason your athlete needs to go back, they could go back on the infield or they can go back in lane 5. Okay, relays. Team relay forms will be available and must be submitted by 3 p.m. on Tuesday, July 11th. Absolutely no relays will be accepted after that time period. It takes too long to set up relays for the coming days, and we need that time to do it right. So please adhere to that. We won't entertain any ads after that period of time. Athletes with multiple relays must identify those relays, lettering them from A to Z with no duplicates. Last year we had some issues with some relays teams having multiple A, B, or C relays, and it caused issues when we needed to run those relays. Athletes in the relays teams do not have to run the relay in the regional event in order to qualify for nationals. They do have to, however, have each athlete in that relay attain an A or a B standard for the distance event that they're running. And we will check those prior to accepting the relay. Athletes may be entered in up to 2 relays. Athletes may not enter in more than 1 relay of a type. So if you're doing the male 4x100, no matter if it's 10 points or 50 points, you can only do 1. You could be in a male 4x100 relay and a mixed 4x100 relay. That's perfectly fine. Relay teams may have 1 member of their team from another team or independent. If it's a independent relay and they need another person, they would ask a athlete from one of the teams or from another region to join them. If you do compose a relay with a 4th person from another team or region, please note that the main team The team with three runners will get the points for those relays. Oh, that's it. I hope to see you soon in Alabama. Again, if you have any questions, send them to Phil G1234 at Comcast.net. I will make one more comment about protests. If you have an issue with an event and you need to protest, come see one of the referees. 90% of the time, we should be able to rectify it without you going to a formal protest. If you do have video for that will collaborate your position, please bring that with you so that we can look at that while we're making our decision. Field. If your athlete is in field and they disagree with an official call, they should protest immediately so that we will hold the mark of that particular throw or jump until that issue is resolved. If the athlete does not protest immediately and that mark is picked up, I can't help you. So educate your athletes that, let's say an athlete is throwing their discus and they believe that the discus was in and the officials call it out, then protest immediately. And again, if there's video available, we can review the video, or we can ask other officials that are in that pit to collaborate with the head official to determine what our final position will be. Again, I hope you had a great day. If you have any questions, please write them, and we look forward to a great track and field competition.